Today's video has a lot of similarities to the video I made about the brown eyes blue eyes experiment because we're gonna tackle the same exact problem, which is discrimination. So why talk about discrimination again, you might ask? Because it plays a huge role when it comes to the atrocities that happened in our history. It can get so bad to the point that a government could come up with a system to erase an entire race, including the people that helped them. Yes, I'm talking about the Holocaust. It's hard to comprehend the amount of hate a person could possess, someone so ordinary like you and me, to be able to carry out such monstrosity. And this is exactly the problem Ron Jones had when trying to explain to his students why the Nazis did what they did. And just like Jane Elliott, Jones decided to take a more personal approach by conducting an experiment in his classroom. It didn't take long, only in 5 days, and the experiment took a life of its own, and he had to stop it before it became dangerous. And funny enough, Jones started the experiment by saying, "We're going to do an experiment, a non-threatening experiment," which obviously he will soon regret saying in the first place. Jones was the kind of teacher that was pretty laid back and quite popular with his students. But in order for the experiment to work, he had to change his demeanor to convince his students to follow along. Jones played Wagnerian music in the background as the students entered the class one by one, and he rearranged their desks in a straight line. As the students settled to their desks, Jones told them that he would like to share to the class the key to success and power, and wrote "Strength through discipline" on the blackboard. He said he was going to start a movement called the Third Wave, aimed to eliminate democracy because he believes the emphasis on individuality is holding their growth as a society. He began to introduce rules they have to follow from that day on, and the very first rule was for them to sit straight with their feet flat on the floor and greet him good morning in unison every time he enters the classroom. As incentives, all the students were promised an A if they participated in the experiment. Any failed effort of a revolution would get them an F, but a successful one would get an A. Jones actually thought it wasn't gonna work, and it was only gonna last on the first day. But Jones was met with a surprise as soon as he entered the classroom the following day and saw all of his students sitting upright, followed by a good morning, exactly like how he told them the day before. Since the first day of the experiment was going well, he might as well just continue on and see where it goes. Jones added "strength through community" on the second day, just below the previous slogan. A powerful sense of belonging had sprung up among the students, and Jones admitted that he became a part of the exercise as well. They were told they had to greet one another with a Nazi-like salute everywhere they meet a fellow third wave member. This is perhaps the scariest rule of them all because this is where it started to become all too real. It required all the students to participate 24 hours, as the rules do not only apply in class or at school, but also outside of the school and at home. Jones had told them to be liable for one another, that failing to salute a fellow member outside of the class is an offense and can get them reported. Soon, students from outside of the classroom started to notice their unique exchanges and decided to become a part of the movement, growing their size to 60. Jones added "strength through action" on the third day and instructed his students to finish some task. Some were instructed to memorize everyone in the group's names and addresses, while others were instructed to create third wave banners, armbands, and membership cards. According to a former student, banners were hung all throughout the campus, including a 20-footer in the library. By the end of the day, around 200 students from different classes were brought in to join the movement. It was like walking on a slippery rock. By the third or fourth day, there was an obvious explosion of emotion that I couldn't control, Jones said. Each participant in the third wave was given a membership card, 3 of which Jones marked with an X at random. Those in charge of the marked cards were instructed to keep track of who broke the rules. Several boys wearing third wave armbands were assigned to guard Jones as he strolled the school's corridors. It was a black band. When I went home, it got my parents worried. They thought it was the equivalent of the SS, said one of Jones's former students. Jones had to convince the students' mother, who had called to express her anxiety, that it was just a class activity. By the end of the fourth day, nearly half of the class had approached Jones with specific information about others' misdeeds, ranging from incorrect salutes to schemes to overthrow him. It was phenomenal. There was a whole underground of activity. People were assigning themselves as guards, Jones says. Because of the sheer amount of reports he had received, he could make out the reality of what is going on in the class. There was betrayal among the teens who had been close friends since childhood. A group of buddies could be sharing a cigarette in the bathroom, discussing a plan to kidnap Jones the next day and fulfill the exercises requirement for a top grade. But it wouldn't happen because somebody of those 2 or 3 would inform Jones of their plot. This is exactly what happened to one of the students, who informed many classmates that he had brought a cap pistol to school in order to get an A by emulating an assassination. The student dropped the idea after Jones gave him a harsh look in class and reminded the group of the consequences of disloyalty. Jones had assigned some students to become some sort of a secret police force, and from there, he was able to convict the guilty during class. No matter who was being pointed the finger at, the guilty would immediately stand up and be escorted to the library to be exiled. It created a sense of fear, and people were starting to get even more paranoid. And it was effective. The 5th day was when Jones had to put a stop to the experiment before it got violent. He had heard an alarming rumor from the students about beating up 3 of their most skeptical members. All 3 had informed their parents about the 3rd wave. One family's rabbi even contacted Jones at home with inquiries, but Jones's vague responses were enough for him without needing to ask any more probing questions. I kept hoping someone would walk in and ask what was going on so I could point to them and say, "That's right, look what you're doing. You've become just like fascists," and end it. But it didn't happen. Even the school's teachers were unconcerned about it. Although some parents did warn their children not to come to the class, this simply fueled the students' desire to participate. Other than that, the sheer number of students in Jones's class was starting to disrupt normal school routines. In order to end the experiment, he had the 3 skeptics escorted to the library for their own safety. And as for the rest of the members, they were told to attend a rally the following afternoon where a presidential candidate will be announced for the 3rd wave. When the students arrived at the auditorium the following day, Jones had placed the TV in front of them and dimmed the lights. When he turned on the TV, it was only playing static. The crowd was starting to get uneasy after some time, and some even ran to the door thinking it was a trap. After a few minutes, Jones returned to shut off the television and take a position at the microphone on stage and played a movie montage of World War II behind him. "There's no 3rd wave movement, no leader," he told the stunned audience. "You and I are no better or worse than the citizens of the Third Reich. We would have worked in the defense plants. We will watch our neighbors be taken away and do nothing," Jones said, referring to the 3 skeptics exiled to the library for the crime of disbelief. "We're just like those Germans. We'd give our freedom up for the chance of being special." The students were horrified that they'd so neatly played out a transition to fascistic thought and behavior. Others simply confirmed that their hunches about the creepy new classroom vibe were right. The pleasure of membership, the creeping thrill of exclusion, and the comfort of discipline and rules meant that the experiment was unquestionably a success. It vividly illustrated the chilling conclusion theorist Hannah Arendt came to at the trial of Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann, that most members of the SS were neither perverted nor sadistic, but rather terribly and terrifyingly normal. Now, since you have watched this video in its entirety, I'm pretty sure you'll love this video as it's quite similar to the 3rd wave experiment. And like the 3rd wave experiment, this one was also conducted in a class, and in the end, even though they were kids, it got really dark pretty fast. So go ahead, watch the video, and I'll see you there.